I the asshole for not letting my kids go on vacation with my ex because it's my time with them? So right now, both of my kids, 16-year-old boy and 9-year-old girl, and my ex are extremely mad at me because I won't give up my appointed time with them. My son won't even talk to me, and my daughter is crying all the time. A little backstory. Me and my ex divorced shortly after my daughter was born. I blame him for it, and he blames me. I won't go into detail here. We ended up with a 50-50 custody agreement switching every other week. While this was 8 years ago, we're still not on good terms. We rarely ever talk to each other outside of the kids, and I am perfectly fine with that. One thing we have agreed on since the beginning, though, is that we don't plan things on days that are not ours. And unless it's extremely important, we don't switch days or weeks. In the 8 years since we've been divorced, I have never asked him to have the kids on a day that isn't mine, and I have never given him one of my days, even if he begged. Well, last week, my ex contacted me and told me the good news. His parents are hosting a week-long family reunion in the summer at Disneyland, and he wants to take the kids. Well, the problem is that it's on one of my weeks. He asked me to let the kids stay with him that week or to switch a week with me, and I shot him down. It is my week with the kids, and I get to spend it with them. I told him if it's so important to him to reschedule, but he claims his parents can't do that, and this is the only week that the whole family can go, and he told me that I need to, quote unquote, think of them. I told him, quote unquote, tough luck, and I hung up on him. Well, this last Sunday when my ex dropped the kids off and my son refused to talk to me at all, and my daughter wouldn't even look at me. When I asked my ex what was wrong, he refused to talk to me, only saying, "Ask them," in a snarky tone before leaving. When I asked my daughter what was wrong, she burst into tears and said that I was, quote unquote, not letting daddy take them to Disneyland, asking my son, who still refuses to talk to me. It turns out that my ex told them I was not letting them go to Disneyland with him. He's trying to paint me as the bad guy. I sat both of them down last night to talk to them and explain it's my week with them, but they refused to listen to me. My daughter just continued to cry, and my son told me I'm only doing this to get back at my ex. I'm not, though. I think it is completely unfair for him to do this when his parents scheduled it during my time with my kids. I demanded an apology from my ex and him to set things straight, but he refuses. And his last text to me being, "Can't tell them the truth because they already know it." I am furious right now. So, am I the asshole because my ex scheduled a Disneyland trip during my time with my kids? How is it my fault that I'm only using my right to spend time with my children? Let me know in the comments what you think. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out of my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant? I come from a very conservative Christian family. All my family members were and are involved in the church and have church-based jobs. When they met my wife, they loved her and embraced her as their own. We dated for 2 years and discovered she was pregnant after we got engaged. Invitations were already given at the time, and we decided to still have the wedding on date when my wife was 5 months pregnant. My family was furious when they found out that my wife was pregnant. They asked if we even still considered having a wedding. I said, why not? But they were very upset, especially my mom and dad, who said they have always been known for their decency and good Christian values and weren't willing to let this stain their reputation. As in my wife and I getting married while pregnant. They officially dropped out and refused to negotiate, saying it was done and I only have myself to blame for this outcome and should move their wedding out of town. I was hurt. I tried to change their minds and checked with other members, but my brother said he had no intentions to look like a joke in front of his fellow church members and dropped out. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she may not be able to make it. She's 100% healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and stopped his wife and kids from attending, and my uncle cussed me out, tore the invitation right in front of me, and kicked me out. I felt terrible with no family members of my own to support me and share my joy at my wedding. I even broke down crying after the ceremony. I haven't spoken to them for months and then got busy with my 4-week-old daughter. My cousin reached out to hand me gifts and well wishes for the birth of my daughter sent from my family. I returned everything. He sat with me on behalf of the family, saying I shouldn't have returned gifts that were from my family who want to see and hopefully be involved in my daughter's life. He said, Mom is longing to meet her grandbaby and everyone else is wanting to visit soon to celebrate my daughter's life. I asked him this question. Wasn't my daughter the reason why the entire lot of them abandoned my wedding? He just stared grudgingly as I went on about how they treated my daughter as something to be ashamed of and hide from. My daughter at some point will ask about my wedding, and I have no intentions on lying to her. He replied saying he guaranteed I got it all wrong, and no matter what goes down between us, I can never deny that my daughter is their granddaughter, niece, etc., and they're her family. He asked that I arrange for them to visit, but I refused. He kept pressing the idea, but I shut him down. My wife says I should let them come, but I still refused. So am I the asshole for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out of my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant? Am I the asshole for sending the police to my daughter's place? I am a mother of 2, 13 male and 22 female. My daughter lives in a rental apartment with her boyfriend. Personally, I'm not too fond of him due to behavioral issues. He's the kind of guy who speaks intensively, especially about my disabled husband. He has nothing against him, but he keeps making backhanded comments about him constantly. And for that, I limit his visits to my house since I have a younger son and it is not acceptable to speak about his dad this way. Only my older daughter visits for the time being, but she complains about me being too harsh on her boyfriend. One day, she brought up my husband's pickup truck that's been sitting in the garage since my husband got injured, disabled, and asked if I was willing to give it to her and her boyfriend to fix and use. I declined since the owner is pretty much alive and well, and he gets the final say on what to do with it. My husband loves this truck and holds it dear to his heart, so I see it as a precious object. My daughter kept bringing it up to her dad, saying he can't drive anymore, so I should let her and her boyfriend have it. I sternly told her to stop talking about it. Thursday, I was out shopping when my son called saying his sister's boyfriend came over and towed the truck and left with it. I was furious. I called my daughter, but she didn't answer. I sent a voicemail saying I would call the police if they didn't return the truck, but nothing. I waited for a few hours, then called the police and had them sent to my daughter's place. to my daughter's place to retrieve the truck. Her boyfriend was arrested in the process. My daughter called crying, saying I should tell the police to let him go, as she gave him the key to our house to take the truck, but I denied giving permission to take it. She came begging me to go to the police station and get her boyfriend out, but I refused and said I won't drop it after he broke into my house and stole my husband's truck, and her excuse didn't hold up since she wasn't a resident of the house to give him permission to enter, let alone to take my husband's truck. Her boyfriend's mom threatened me, saying her nephew is a cop and will get him out no problem, but I ignored her. My daughter kept yelling at my husband when he was in bed, telling me to say something. That's when I told her to leave. My family got involved, saying I should let her boyfriend get out or I'll lose my daughter and get her to hate me. But I refused otherwise because I know he would do it again. I'm not sure if I'm morally doing the right thing since that's my daughter's boyfriend and she cares a lot about him. So, am I the asshole for sending the police to my daughter's place? Am I the asshole for telling my dad that he is an effing man-child for refusing to deal with my sister's first period? My 20 parents are divorced. My mom, 43, lives about 2 hours away from my dad, 46, his fiance, who's 26, and my sister, who's 11. This weekend, I visited home and stayed with my dad and sister. I get home at around 7 in the morning and see my dad off to work and sister off to school. At around noon, I wake up to a phone call from my mom telling me that I need to go pick up my sister from school. I ask what's going on. She tells me that my sister started her period and left her to-go bag at her place. I said, okay, get in my car, lay down some stuff, and start heading to her school. On the way there, I get a call from my dad, and I'm told to not worry about it and to go home. I'm told that my dad's fiance will take care of it after she gets off work. I tell him that I'm not busy right now and I can get her. He tells me that I'm a man and I don't need to handle it, and I should let a woman handle a woman's problem. I'm kind of dumbfounded, but hey, if his fiance is on her way over, I get to go back to sleep for the rest of the day. I ask how long it'll loop. He says these exact words. She gets off at 3. The school will give her some new pants for the time being, which is crazy, right? I tell him that's ridiculous and I'm going to pick her up. He legitimately tells me no and tells me to turn around. I say I'm going to get my sister, and I hung up on him before he started arguing. I get her. I ask her if she has any feminine products at home, and she says no. So I take her to the store and buy her some pads and tampons of different flows, and I got her some of the foods my girlfriend wants when she's on the rag. We get home, and I tell her to wake me up if she needs anything, and I go back to sleep. Hours later, I wake up to banging on the door. It's my dad, and he's yelling at me for defying him and taking care of my sister. He then tells me it's disgusting that I bought her stuff and that I'm her brother and I shouldn't be involved in her sexual health. I tell him that he is being ridiculous. He tells me I need to never do things like this again. I tell him he's acting like an effing man-child. He goes off and kicks me out. So I pack up a to-go bag and go to my mom's, where she tells me that I shouldn't have said what I said, even if it was true. Even my girlfriend told me that I overreacted and shouldn't have sworn at my dad. So, am I the asshole for telling my dad that he's an effing man-child for refusing to deal with my sister's first period?